Golf clubs.
It's good. It's good. I
So
liked
yeah,
it.
we're all on the same page. We've all had absolutely terrible weeks,
Yeah.
which is really, really like cash money.
That's what people want to hear.
Yeah. So no, but it's really good because
Look at us
like
struggling.
We're real. We're
we
real.
are
Yeah.
struggling, and we have still showed up for each other to be
Yeah.
here and produce this for you guys. So just
It's weird how this
grateful.
happens. The last time we said we had a rough week, we all had
We all had
a
a
rough
rough
week at the same
Yeah.
time.
all our cycles have linked
Yeah,
up.
all our cycles are back in
Yeah.
sync.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
how are we all doing mentally?
Not great. It's actually really funny. I was looking at the mental health episode because obviously we had to do the reels for it. And I was like, man, I was in such a better place a week ago.
Oh no.
So yeah, they're
Oh.
normally well timed, but yeah, not.
Okay.
You're not okay?
Yeah,
It's all right.
Yeah.
But it's okay because we have these weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're here for you to support
Exactly,
you.
and I'm gonna blackout drinking on the weekend and just kind of reset and be ready to do another one.
What about you guys? Is it work
Yeah,
for most of us?
Yeah,
Is
mine's
it
work.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
It's work.
Cam, how are you?
I'm just vibing.
You sure?
Oh, I like
Yeah,
that. I
just
like that.
rolling with it, you know?
So you're good?
No, I'm just practicing
Oh.
stoicism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is stoicism? Tell me about
Acknowledge
it.
it.
Yeah, well, I listened to the introduction podcast this morning.
Yeah.
Yep, I woke up, went for a probably an 8-kilometer run, got about 1.5 kilometers in, stopped running,
Okay.
turned around, put on the stoicism podcast, started walking home.
Ah.
Just called it a day there.
That's okay. You know when that moment. So what happened in that moment? You were just like 1.5K because you can just you're a runner. You can just run.
You're a runner, you're
so
a track
it's-
star.
it must be something to stop you from running after 1.5K.
I think the sun's just getting up later.
Yeah.
So it's like I wake up at the same time, and even though I'm still running, it's just dark. And I don't know, this morning it just felt
Not
like
a
the
vibe.
vibes are off.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's it.
Fuck.
That's cool.
I'm not doing the run today. Going home.
You know what though? Like you still showed up.
Yeah.
That was the caption of my run on Strava. I literally
Showed up.
captioned it. Some days it's just about showing up.
Yeah. Good on you.
Good stuff, man.
How about you, bro? Just work.
Nah, man. Just work. Personally, I'm doing cool, but work. It's just one of those weeks, man.
It's one of those
I
weeks,
don't
and you know what? We're all here. We're still all like somewhat positive. I feel like we're here for each other.
I was
Yeah.
driving here. I was like, I wonder, like, if when I listen back to this, you'll be able to like hear that, like, I'm having
Yeah.
an absolutely terrible week, or whether I'll be able to switch it on.
I was thinking that too. I was
Yeah.
like, damn, do I have to like show up and actually just like switch it
Or,
off
like,
and be like,
pretend to be,
yeah, and just or let it go,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
actually
but,
just
you know, I'm good at faking.
I was thinking the other way. How good would it be to listen back to this, start of the episode, all,
Yeah.
but then by the end of it, everyone's a bit more chirpy, spirits lifted because they've had the chance to spend some time with each other.
I think it was
I
also,
think so.
yeah, we've
I
all got a
reckon.
kick that, you know, that we're all going through, you know, the same.
and even listening to this right now, I feel like we've started off pretty slow, but let's get that
You
energy.
were talking
Yeah.
it
Let's
out.
get that energy.
Yeah.
Maybe we would just all scream into the mic. Ready?
Yeah, go.
3, 2.
Don't do it.
Cam just pulled off his headphones
Yeah.
behind the producer there.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
How we
And
And have a good night. Thank you
follow
for
your
joining
dreams,
us.
guys.
follow your dreams,
So
kids.
we're running back another Thursday Arvo pod.
Thursday Arvo pod, we're locked in
Doing our
after work,
5 till 9 after our 9 till 5.
and today we're talking about
Oh, yeah, the right to disconnect.
boom.
Yeah, indeed.
boy.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
So Cameron is our topic expert.
Topic expert for
Topic
today,
expert,
yeah.
our specialist in this one. So Cameron, do you want to just start off by telling us why you're the topic expert for this episode?
Yeah, sure, because I got Google in front of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I think it has been mentioned in the podcast before, but what I do for work is similar to Cam as well. I work in HR, in hotels as well.
It's like a little Easter egg that we've chucked in
Yeah.
through episodes.
Yeah, just sprinkled it in.
Yeah.
It's really great because when people meet Cam and myself and they're like, okay, you have the same name, let's
That's
differentiate the two of you.
Yeah.
They run it back. Okay, both in HR,
Yeah.
both in hotels.
Yeah.
Both live together.
Both dangerously handsome.
But, yeah.
And a little cheeky.
like the dangerously adjective there.
Rah. So yes,
Yeah, I love
we
it.
are the same
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, we're still trying to find something that separates us.
Yeah.
Human centipede style. Separate those two boys.
Actually, it'd be good to get our housemate on, Jasmine. I'm sure she's found some differences living with us for the last 6 months.
Yeah,
Actually, let's see how her mental health is doing.
Yeah.
After having to deal
Subjected
with us
to
for that
both
long.
of you.
Oh, we also live together, so that's the cherry on top. Cool. So, you work in HR?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what has recently happened in the world of workplace
Human resources
legislation?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where when it goes through, it gets announced, but then it gets announced as like an active day. So at the moment, we all know it's coming in. It's a new bit of legislation, the right to disconnect. So, but there's also a bit of a lead up time so employers can sort of get their head around the legislation and how that's going to impact their businesses. So it's not actually going to come into effect until I think it's the 26th
of August.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So we've got some time to sort of have these discussions. And it's this style of discussion as well that we would have with other HR people within the hotels and the business. How does this affect us? Why is this coming into place? And, you know, with each of our different industries, there's going to be a unique approach.
Yeah. And the really interesting thing with the lead time is to be able to make those changes is something, whereas like, you know, if you had your employee or something like that, the time it would take you to implement changes in your business versus Ben being in, you know, a small to medium consulting firm versus something like one of the hotels that's a massive, you know, international conglomerate is going to be different.
Yeah.
So it's giving you, the businesses that time to write the policy to see how it can be implemented and make sure that it's done properly.
Because there is 2 launch dates. There's 26th of August now for non-small businesses and then 26th of August next year for small businesses.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's super interesting. One thing that comes to mind for me is just like understanding what this means. So again, we've sort of talked about it a little bit. You sort of have mentioned that it's like employers not being able to contact their staff after hours. Is that sort of the gist of it, or is there more to it?
Yeah, well, I went to a coffee catch-up with a couple of other Australian HR Institute members. We also discussed it because it is very topical. And the general consensus was where it came from. You know, we've come out of COVID where every employer was like, we want to keep our employees, let's figure out how to work flexibly. So now we've got a bunch of people across the business with a bunch of different working arrangements in terms of location. Some people are working from home, but then also work hours. Some people are starting earlier to factor in other things of life later in the day. People are finishing later. And it's actually having a real impact on the employees' mental states, their psychosocial impact.
Just one.
Cool. Okay, we're good.
Sweet.
Okay.
So we're back.
We're back. And we've changed seats.
Oh.
And it's interesting to see
Yeah.
who's sitting next to you now, Brody. Cam.
Cam.
Oh, okay.
I've got Cam
what a
right here.
change.
It's Ben, Brody, and Cam.
Our
Like, what are we
audio
talking about?
listeners
audio
must be
listeners.
so confused right now.
Audio listeners.
I feel like
Yeah,
we've got
man.
our own like Marvel Cinematic Universe sort of going on. Like,
Yeah, it's the crossover.
yeah, it's like a crossover. Like,
Troy and Abed.
throw 'em up.
So, why has Cameron and Cameron changed seats?
Why have they changed seats?
Yeah, because I'm speaking today. You guys
speaking.
have me on. Speaking a bit about my professional space and HR.
That's it.
Some
Viewerships
recent
are down.
legislation.
Yeah.
Which, when I say it like that, it's probably already lost you some
Oh,
listeners.
no,
I can see them going down.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we just lost
let's
listeners.
back
Yeah.
up.
It's called the right to disconnect.
Yeah.
So
Tell
are
us-
you sick of finishing your workday and having your boss text and call and email and you feel like you can just never switch off? Yeah, a lot of other employees feel like that too. Or are you frustrated as a boss, feeling like you can never contact your employees when you need to do things? So why is that an issue and what are they going to do about it?
Oh my god.
That's the intro.
That was
Whoa.
so good.
That was actually like,
Karen the one take wonder, hey. It was just like the intro to an ABC Four Corners story.
Oh, I was picturing those like infomercials where it's like the black and white.
Yeah.
Struggling with the
Oh,
hose.
it could be that too.
Yeah.
Could be midnight run of the infomercial.
you
So
found your
TV
new role
direct.
behind the.
I like to sit and watch.
Yeah.
So Cam was telling us, coming back from COVID, obviously there's been a lot of different changes with flexible work arrangements, whether that's employees working from home, employees working different hours, and then also brought in the issue of 24-hour businesses. So, in a business where you might have food and beverage, they're having Sunday, Monday off, or night audit team, they're working nights, and to be able to communicate with them and work with them around the clock, 24/7. So, what has that led to?
Yeah.
Mr. Beerling.
Okay. Major, straight up, detriments in employee wellbeing. Like, it's just a major psychosocial impact, which is the way your environment and social things impact your psychological state. And that's what's happening. With so many people working at different times, you know, someone negotiates, I'm going to work from 7 till 3 because I want to finish early and pick up my kids. But then someone working in the same business is also going to swing around and say, I actually want to finish later, so I'll start later, but they're also expecting that person that's finishing earlier to reply and work on their deadline. And that's causing an issue. And that's what the right to disconnect is essentially partially trying to address. If someone's now contracted to finish work at 3, they have the right to disconnect at 3 until they start their work day the next day.
Yeah.
Damn.
So one of the just initial things that's coming off the top of my head that can be difficult with this is, so when you're contracted either casual, part-time or full-time, and, casual, no structured regular hours, part-time, your minimum hours, and full-time 38 hours. So nowhere in that process is it contracted what your hours have to be. So how's that communicated and how's that officiated?
Yeah. Well, that's
One of the issues.
kind of harder to explain because it's all more or less individually negotiated. It can be by the business and they say these are our working hours, but we mentioned COVID before. With a lot of businesses trying to retain their employees, they've essentially allowed their employees to negotiate individual working arrangements, and that's probably one of the contributing factors.
And also too, from like a recruitment perspective, it's also one of the major selling pitches for a workplace these days. Especially, it's an employees market with a surplus. So you've got to be able to kind of stand out and add like value proposition. So everyone's offering the same salary for the same position. So it's like, what can we offer to stand out to be different? And one of those things is flexible working arrangements. So it's we offer it, but how do we make it work for the business and for the person?
Yeah, that's true. I feel like there's such like a range of it as well, because like you'll have the horrible bosses that are just always calling you, telling you have to come into work when they expect you to. But then you probably have other ones that might just be like casually just sending updates, not even for you to reply.
Yeah.
Like an email or something at night because they're working late. So it's like, where do you sort of gauge that, right?
There's factors, isn't there, that's building into the legislation of what must be considered when determining whether an employee's refusal is unreasonable. And that includes the reason for the contact, whether the employee is compensated for being available in the period when contact is made, working additional hours outside their ordinary hours, the nature of the employee's role and level of responsibility, and the employee's personal circumstances like family and caring responsibilities. So, God, it's nuanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like when we do our HR training and learning, there's not a lot of legal learning, but what I have learned is that, man, the word reasonable is so vague, and it will vary depending on businesses and even between hotels and different management styles, essentially.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at that particular circumstance. Was what happened reasonable? Would it work? Would it fly somewhere else? So like some of the things you listed off there, like you consider someone's seniority. It's definitely reasonable to have a manager or a general manager on call.
Yeah.
Like that person needs to be contactable in the case of an emergency. But in other instances where someone's
like an
probably a
accountant
frontline
or
staff,
something.
yeah, you can't expect that person to be readily available to be like, hey, can you answer this real quick? No, because I'm not already being compensated for that.
That's hectic. Do you feel like this is going to cause issues down the line where, I don't know, say in a workplace, someone is reaching out to try and get something and the other person's just not contactable at all until they get back to work? And then in this case, like, I don't know, it causes issues within the business?
Yeah, it could do. It's really interesting that it's like, if you had this conversation 10 years ago, it would be so confusing because the situation we're in now would already be something you'd have to explain. So because we've had all these factors already change our business scape, this is almost trying to bring back a sense of normality and structure and rigidity to it. But there's definitely going to be now situations of people resisting it justifiably, of course, and because all these great reasons have come up for flexible working arrangements and also the benefits and all sorts of things like that, proving that you can, in some instances, do these jobs remotely or in a different way. They're going to have a strong case as to it is actually reasonable for me to work and live like this.
Oh, 100%. Like, I've heard of so many stories of horrible bosses that, especially with the rise of flexible working, you're sort of just expected to be able to answer anything at any given time.
Yeah.
Just because, like, no one sort of knows what your hours are or...
And that's definitely what this is definitely combating.
Yeah.
Because there's only a certain number of hours in a day that you're essentially being compensated for being available for.
Yeah.
Then again, with the seniority positions, they do get paid more for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think it gets to a level where it almost is fair? It's like we're talking CEO, even somewhat general manager and things like that.
Like that comes with the role.
It
sort of
does.
thing.
That's part of the expectation of being a senior leader. Is that you knowingly go into that situation that you might be contacted after hours. But it's when these people aren't actually knowingly going into the situation and that expectation isn't fair of them. So that's when it starts to get really tough.
On the other side of that, so there's the expectation that senior management should be contactable outside of work. But what about on the flip side of that? Does that mean that they can be contacted, but they can't contact low-level employees?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that means like if you want, end of working day, 7, 8 o'clock at night, you can email your general manager and be like, hey, this, but they're not allowed to reply to you.
Well, they don't have to reply.
Like
that's the thing. It'd be on the urgency and, again, the reasonable request.
Yeah.
Like if your request of them is reasonable, like working in a hotel, something's flooding, like rooms on fire, he would definitely want to know about it and he would just come straight in to work with it.
Yeah.
But if it's, there's a rostering change, doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like we can manage that tomorrow. It doesn't have to be actioned there and then. So
I
that's
think we
where
need some common sense in this debate, don't we?
Yeah.
Like it's
Isn't
starting
that
to,
every debate?
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, and common sense seems to be the thing that rules out.
It's not that common.
No, it's not. And I suppose it does depend on the industry as well. So say you're in a new hotshot tech startup, right? You go into that knowing that there's going to be an expectation that stuff is happening so quickly, the growth is so quick, and you might be excited by that role. You know that you're going to be contacted at like ridiculous hours because there's a call in the US with your partner over in the US, and that's going to happen. But like if it was my job as a financial advisor, we don't lean on international, relations. We have them, but they're not like there's no urgency to it. So if my boss contacted me at 9 saying something needs to be done, I know in reality that it doesn't till the next day. Like there's nothing, like the financial markets are closed anyway. There's nothing that can be done. Yeah. So
quick, they opened up for 5 minutes. Get back in there.
Quick. They did this
They've
special
got to
for
close
us.
them tonight.
Yeah, the door was still unlocked to the ASX.
But at the same time, with that situation, do you get your emails on your phone?
I do. I do.
And when you start the day tomorrow, after you've received this midnight email from this supervisor or boss, is there expectation that you already know the contents of that email before you started? So when you walk in the door, they're saying, hey, that email last night, have you had a chance? No.
Never.
That's the right to disconnect because you're actually disconnecting from the workplace entirely. So I have a strong mindset on I don't want to have anything to do with work once I leave work. So no emails on my phone, that kind of thing. And it's the right to deliberately choose that so that way you don't actually have these distractions in your life and you're not bringing back home this mental workload from work into your personal life so you can enjoy it, live the life worth living.
That's true. I think that sort of ties into a lot of personal responsibility that has to come with this as well. Like it's not just on the employer not to contact you, but you also have to take the initiative to have your notifications turned off for those certain apps and things, like to make sure you're not just getting
have that discipline.
That discipline of like emails popping up on your phone, because again, we all do it, and then you're instantly just reading it. So you got to have some sort of initiative yourself to be able to switch off or have like the tools in place to make sure you can switch off better as well.
Yeah, because emails is a great tool when you're at work, but you don't want that following you home.
Yeah.
So if there's a method of communication that you need to have to contact you while you're away from the office, maybe it's not emails.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a different program.
And we go back to like the burner flip phones just for outside of work.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, I'll set one of those up today. So some people still use a burner. I'm setting up an old
Sick.
Android.
I tried to
part-time
call an applicant today, and his wife answered, and she's like, "Oh, he's male, just doesn't have a phone." And this is like a 30-year-old man in modern day society that just doesn't have a phone.
Doesn't have a phone.
No, she just doesn't have a phone. And I was like, how do you...
Interesting.
That's
How do
incredible.
you,
Dude, man is flexing his right to disconnect.
Yeah.
how do you even log into your computer? It's normally like two-factor authentication.
That's what I'm
and
saying. Like,
everything.
think about how many things in life, like I had to do reference checks, I couldn't put his phone number in, like all this stuff.
I
and
get
was just
anxiety if my phone
it's not
is
with
not
me.
with me.
That's what happened. I had an anxiety attack before and I knocked the incense.
That's actually crazy though, just not having a phone.
Yeah.
When I was reading into this topic, it said, to kind of massage this situation, you should be having open dialogue with like your employer, right?
Yeah.
And you should be going, okay, let's set some ground rules. Okay. Now I'm in two minds that say you have two employees in the workplace, this law comes in and one of those employees says, all right, boss, we need to lay down the law and this is what the law is now. You can't do this anymore. These are my hours and there's the right to disconnect. Then there's the other employee who doesn't say a peep, right? Yes, the boss knows that the law has just blanketed, it covers everybody. Do you think as an employee, it will be a detriment to you if you raise this and somebody else at your level doesn't?
Oh, 100%. I reckon.
If I was the employer, I'd be
yeah.
like, one's going to cause a headache for me. I'm cool with the other one because it's how we've been going. It's how, it's the status quo of the business.
I think like that's something to consider as well, is like if you're the person bringing it up, that's with everything as well. There's going to be certain
Rock
things
the
like,
boat and then,
So I could see it in a way that, especially now that it's coming in, and a lot of people are in these roles that haven't had clear definitions of like what your hours are or how I'm allowed to contact you. I guess that's sort of what you've mentioned, that people have to start putting these in place, but there's probably going to be a ton of workplaces that don't have that.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
probably
Small
more
businesses, yeah.
less on the employees sort of setting personal boundaries and more focused on the employers saying, okay, we've let this go a bit too far. And then the onus is on them to set up policies and things to set their reasonable working hours.
Yeah.
until this gets played out in some kind of work
It'll
place.
definitely come up in fair work.
Yeah,
Like,
in
it'll
fair
be-
work, and someone will stress test it and it'll be the new law.
Oh, 100%. Like, you're going to have both sides. You're going to have employers, like, absolutely going overboard with trying to put this in place and then trying to figure out how much they can actually contact people, or perhaps not even listening to the rules around it. But then on the other side, you might also have employees that completely just aren't connected at all to the business and maybe even bring up, like, if, say, their boss emails them, they might be like, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're emailing me after hours.
I had it when I was on leave, when I was in Perth. I had one of my managers reach out to me and just send me a quick text like, hey, where's this at, like in the middle of the day? And then I was like, oh, hey, I'm just on leave. Don't have my laptop with me. Can you just forward it to person X?
Yeah.
And he's like, so sorry, apologies, didn't mean to, and like just was really like, concerned about it. So like, I think it's gonna be very interesting how the managers take it on, especially at that high level.
So like in that example, then that would be considered reasonable, I guess, like in terms of they backed off.
Yeah.
Like they backed off in that
responses and reasonable. Yeah. Like if Cameron's established himself as someone that prides himself in his work and does sometimes work flexibly and on the grey areas of his normal work day.
Yeah.
That person might have the expectation that they could contact you. And if that's not something you've already discussed or negotiated, they don't really understand that they're not supposed to. Yeah. But if they then, like I said, shoot you a text, give you a call, and you immediately say, actually, no, I'm on holidays, I can't even access it. If I wanted to, I'll get to it when I get back. And they're apologetic, that's fine. Yeah. Then no harm, no foul almost.
Yeah.
People are going to have different boundaries as well, too, of what they're willing to accept. So, like, I know, like, personally, pretty much 24 hours, like, 24/7 during the week, happy to take calls and texts and things like that before work, after work, during work. but then pretty much once it clicks over to that Saturday, Sunday night, my phone's off.
Yeah.
I'm not answering anything from then on. So like I think it's gonna be a bit of a spectrum on what people do feel comfortable with and what they don't.
And that's why I sort of felt like you still have to take that initiative as well, because there's probably going to be so many people that don't actually speak up and say like, or like just answer the phone because their boss is calling them because they don't want to get fired or something like that.
Yeah.
Even though it's not okay, but they might not realize, like they're just like, oh snap, like I'm going to get in trouble. Need to answer the phone.
Obviously we've spoken about like the issue, why it's come around and what the potential solution is. So like breaking it down a little bit, if you are an employee and you feel like, you know, your manager is kind of contacting you a lot outside of your work hours and things like that, Cam, what would be some like manageable steps of something an employee could do to kind of, you know, respectfully either push back or to communicate their working hours or something like that?
Square up, man. Stand on business.
Yeah.
Get into a punch on with your manager.
Check a left, right, good
Last
night.
man standing.
Yeah, see, our secondary step to that meeting could have been an email, but that email could have been a fist fight. So just settle it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
It's a bit nuanced. Like, yeah, it's a fun little space in HR where a lot of people get into it thinking that starting with a really empathetic approach, I'm there for the people. But also at the end of the day, we're also trying to manage what risk to the business the largest asset is, which is the people. So because people are so diverse with so much, they bring so much with them, a lot of what the HR function is managing that risk, and part of that is now this. So yeah, we're going to have to be in that negotiation stage a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably for the smaller businesses. For, I know, larger headcount businesses, it's probably going to be a policy. They're going to have a centralised industrial relations specialist set up with a policy. This is what we're going to do. If you are outside of hours in these scale of positions, this is the contact methods, these approved channels. If that doesn't work, we can't contact you. Because you kind of have to think about it from the business perspective as well. The frustration of trying to contact someone and they are not answering, particularly if they're a casual employee. Like if we have someone in a community services industry where you need carers, you're calling up people that are casually, hey, can you come in for this casual shift? And no one's answering because they're all saying, oh, I want to disconnect. But at the same time, you're like, part of your casual employment is that you do take shifts flexibly.
That's a really interesting point, yeah.
So then,
you don't have regular scheduled hours.
Yeah. So there is a reasonable expectation that we can call you outside of a shift to be able to get a hold of you to offer you a shift.
But it's going to be your business defining reasonable.
Yeah. And how often can we contact you? What channels can we contact you on? Are you comfortable with your personal phone number being your main direct line?
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah.
But it's the expectation.
Throw that phone
if you're
away.
going into that business knowing that you're doing shift work.
Yeah.
I think that's a hard cultural norm to just shake off, to be like, hey, I'm always working in shift work, I'm always working in hospo. Don't you dare contact me at like 7:30 when there's peak restaurant times and stuff like that. Don't you dare contact me then.
I feel
that's crazy.
I feel like
I
the
get
big
you.
push for it is like corporate services in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's where the issue is.
Yeah. It probably is based around that professional services, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Agreed.
The other thing I've seen too that they've been suggesting too is like just communicating your work hours like in your email signatures and things like that. I know these days, like by the time you throw in your title, company, pronouns, working hours, or your signature's getting pretty chunky.
It's chunky, yeah. And all the awards I've won.
Yeah.
Shit.
Must be nice.
Links to the Betterment Project as well.
Young emerging leader, runner up.
Runner up 2003.
But yes, I know one line that they've been using is like, hey, just so you know, like I'm contacting you at this time because it's convenient for me. Do not feel like you're obliged to have to reply.
True.
So just like a little sentence you can throw in at the end there. But another thing you can put in your working hours or your contactable hours.
Yeah, I do that too. I put a little razzle dazzle on it. So I like to open it up with, because it's still very new and a lot of people might not know. So like having that random line in there could be new. So I open it up with are you receiving this outside of your regular hours?
Yeah.
That's because working flexibly and work-life balance is different for everyone. Like that kind of opener. So it's a reason as to this is why I'm myself working at this time of day, even though I'm in a professional services role. But don't feel obliged to then reply because I'm sending you an email now. Reach out when it suits to you. These are my traditional working hours.
Do you think the weight and the importance of your role is going to change your proclivity to pick up the phone. Because so if my output is based around it's a direct client relationship, and because I'm dealing with that client directly, it's almost like it's a real close relationship. If my boss calls me at 9 o'clock because the client's been caught by a scam or something, and I need to shut down their account immediately, I wouldn't even second guess that. I would just hop on my laptop no matter what I'm doing. I could have been asleep or whatever.
Unlucky, champ. You're going to get conned out of millions, but I'm out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I would jump on immediately because I know that underneath the reason for why I'm being asked at some ungodly time to work or do some task because someone's life savings is going to go down the drain. Do you think that the weight, and it might be because of professional services, that there's that direct client contact, that there's more of an importance to staying online at those times? And this rule is, like, for me, it's not going to mean jack shit.
Yeah.
Like if my boss calls me up at 9 because of something, he's calling me up because something's going wrong with the client.
Yeah.
Not because he's just like, oh, I just remembered something in the shower. Yeah. Do it tomorrow. Like 100%. It's never going to happen.
The issue is, like, the context that you're speaking about is emergency situations, and like Cam said, the hotel's flooding, clients being scammed, makes sense. The issue is the small to medium business owners that don't have boundaries, that their working hours are 24/7. Yeah. So again, like we had, I'm not saying that Cass is one of these people, but she was just saying, like, she's working 24/7. When we had her on, and she's like, I might be working in the morning, midday, middle of the night. It's just whenever it comes to me, I work. So it's like if she's contacting people during those times, or again, same thing. It's mainly, I feel like, those business owners that are in that time where it's like their brain is always on, they're always thinking about things. It's not a once-off. I think it's a regular occurrence. So if your boss is constantly sending you, text at 9 o'clock saying, hey, next day you need to be at this shoot, the time's changed, the location's changed, then you're like, oh, okay, I need to switch, or something like that.
Yeah, and it's the, like, harassment from employers. So, like, the definition of harassment is twofold. It's unwanted behaviour, but it also has to be repeated and recurring. So that is, like, there was a case study on it with this right to disconnect, because it was obviously topical, got brought up in conversation where someone's like, oh, this is where the right to disconnect will come in. And that is when their employer literally called them like 10 times in one afternoon to try and get a hold of them for something as small as a shift change.
Well,
and it's like, that is completely unreasonable.
Yeah.
So is that even coming under this new law of right to disconnect, or is that just purely harassment, which is already legislated?
Well, that could be the interpretation. But like if the employer is trying to justify that stance and saying, oh, no, it's justified because it's work-related or something, the right to disconnect is kind of just adding another
layer on that
protection.
Okay.
For employees.
So I think it's like a multi-step process. Like I think Cam said it really nice, and the same with you, Brody, is having the discipline to take the emails off your thing, or off your phone, not even having your work phone number available at work. So most people have your landline, live and die by that, use that. And then the next steps are, if you do feel like you're being either harassed or contacted throughout, make sure you establish your working hours, and then that's when you potentially escalate and go down that pathway.
Yeah, that's probably when you're on the conversation of escalating. Something that is well known to myself, probably other HR people, that I don't know if is actually as well advertised to the general public as it should be, is your Fair Work Ombudsman. And I'm probably going to get smashed by other HR professionals, because it does create a bit of a headache for us, because we're usually the ones then representing the business against the representative of the employee. But just jumping online to the Fair Work Ombudsman website gives you a very good understanding of employee rights. And the reason why I'm quite happy with being able to share that is the general philosophy of why I do HR is, again, that fairness, protection to the employees. And the Australian industrial relations system has already got so much built into it protection-wise. So if you're having these situations where you feel like there is any element of harassment or anything from your employer, but you don't know how to manage that, then that ombudsman is a great place to go through, at least see where the guidelines are, and get another perspective of, okay, is this reasonable, or am I actually got a position here where I can say this is enough?
Okay.
Yeah.
So take your boss to Fair Work. Get that bag.
Get the bag.
Hours down, bag up.
Definitely start negotiations with your employer first.
Nah, straight to the
Because
bag.
if you jump straight to Fair Work, they might just say, go to your manager. Like,
Right.
Go to that representative within your workplace.
It's both frivolous and vexatious.
Yeah.
Give me that back.
There's definitely a process for it. Yeah.
I think where it really gets difficult, circling back to the professional industries, is like if you're in an industry that is like related to someone's personal life. So like Ben, you're doing people's finances. So they're working Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, the same hours you're working. And they want to try and book time or give you a call to speak about it. And they've only either got before work or after work, so they can't get time off. Or same, like obviously me being in recruitment, if someone's at work 9 till 5, they're not going to just step outside to, go do an interview or to do a phone call. So those kind of after 5 o'clock hours is when I'll get most of my calls. So like when you're talking about your duty of care to your client, do you feel like good just palming them off and not being able to service their needs and what they're looking for?
Well, how do you currently deal with it if people are calling you after work hours?
That's what I said. Yeah, Monday to Friday, I will answer it. If it's on the weekend, I won't.
What if they're calling you like 10 p.m.?
If I'm awake, I'll answer
really?
it.
Yeah, and this is what I found interesting when you started your recruitment, Cam, was because I had a stint in recruitment consulting prior to when now I'm internal HR. And as a recruitment consultant, it's exactly the same, but there's almost, with what I was doing, being a professional services recruiter, you're at work, like they're at work at the same time. And your candidates that you're trying to employ don't want to be caught on the phone speaking to a recruiter that's actively trying to find them a new role. So a lot of those people were trying to say, hey, can I call you after work hours? And that was all right for me in my role, because I think it comes down to two things, being your expectation and the compensation. So as a recruiter, I'm like, that is my sole purpose for work. I can do admin during the day, but my expectation is that I'm contactable for my clients and candidates, and I can do client stuff during the day and on the fringes do candidate work. But then there's the element of compensation, where a lot of recruitment consultants can be paid through commission on placements.
Right.
So it's directly coming back to you. Okay, I cannot take that call, but I'm not going to get paid. But if I make myself available for that afternoon repeatedly and put in the hard yards, then there's a direct financial kickback to that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you're looking at it then through the lens of like being your own boss then, because you're less like, I'm being paid for 40 hours a week. I'm being paid for the results that I'm getting.
Yeah, and that's why it makes sense in that regard.
Yeah.
But then when Cameron's in a situation where he's an internal recruiter, there's not always a
that same motivation.
Commission
attached to it.
So then, okay, well, what's the driving factor in being available after the usual work day?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the sacrifice for your personal time versus what's the upside benefit? A real estate agent works 24/7. I'd like to find a sales agent that does an 8:30 to 5 Monday to Friday job, because the perk is that you're working on commission. So you're driven by that bonus structure, because that's where you make the bread, but at the sacrifice of your personal life. But I guess it's a choice that you make.
Yeah, just don't have a personal life and you're fine.
Just don't have a personal life, but you make $300,000 a year.
But I think it's like, bringing it back to it's about disconnecting from your employer. So with those gig economy employees and people working in it, I'd be interested to know what kind of communication they're receiving during their downtime. Like, are they receiving notifications consistently to say, hey, you should clock on?
Yeah.
Or is it actually...
Yeah, I would say no with the gig economy.
Yeah, is it purely up to them to just clock on when they decide to? Then they're probably right, because they're not actually actively being harassed by an employer to do work. It's probably all right for them. Don't know what they're... Obviously, I didn't do that part of the research.
No, that's all right.
That one up.
Haven't jumped on an Uber bike and delivered some food before.
I've definitely been the recipient.
Mainly at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning with my HSP on the way.
After a late night in the office.
You know what's crazy? I saw these two YouTubers, two Aussie guys that tried to see if you could actually like sign up for Uber Eats as just like without a bike or anything. So you just run it.
And can you?
Yeah, you could. Yeah,
Hit the old shoe box.
they didn't do like any
Foot
certain
Falcon.
check of like you have to have like a
Rolls-Royce.
vehicle that says you can run or something like that. So they were testing who was better at like running the food around Melbourne, I think.
Oh, but they'd have like delivery
awesome.
time expectations and stuff
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So-
Bro, the food would be
30 minutes or
minced
it's
by the time
Yeah,
you got
running,
it.
just sprinting.
Dude, strictly stir fries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shake and bake.
I think he like picked up one of the orders and it was like a pho, like
Sloshing around. What about Uber without the car? And you're just like running to someone's place, give them a piggyback, run to the next
Bro,
place.
while we're speaking of that, have you guys done the bikes in town? You know, like you're out on a night out and the bike will take you from like A to B or something.
Yeah.
I did one of those from Gilligan's to my apartment, which is outside Cairns Central, less than a block and a half away. $25.
no, you got finessed.
I got finessed, bro.
You better have been playing some sweet beats out of that
No, and it
bicycle.
didn't even go that fast.
Oh,
Did you, like-
$25.
Yeah, were you like
Well, maybe that's
negotiating?
why
Were you like
Charles
bartering?
didn't go that fast. He
Yeah.
thought, oh, this is 2 streets. I better take a slow for this
Yeah.
guy. He's paying a premium.
Wow.
So boycott bikes in the city.
Wake up
Was this
Put them
last
out of
Thursday?
business. Hey?
Was this after?
I thought you said was this last night, and I was like, bro, it's Thursday.
Was it last
Yeah.
Thursday?
Could have been. Can't remember now.
Yeah.
Just remember my wallet being a little lighter in the morning.
Yeah. I feel like you left pretty quick after San Francisco. Like you might have just.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. No, it wasn't that. No,
And
I
that was a Thursday night.
sober.
And we
That
were
was a
in
Thursday
Gilligan's.
night.
Yeah.
And we were in
No,
Gilligan's.
I was waiting to leave before the pre-act even came on, and I was just tired, man. I was sober in Gilligan's on a Thursday night. Like, where does that make sense?
You know what's crazy?
Yeah.
I kept being like, they didn't play Awkward.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they didn't play Awkward. And then you're like, yeah, they didn't play Awkward.
They did play Awkward.
And then someone else was like, yeah, they didn't play Awkward as we're walking out.
Yeah.
And then Mira's like, they did play Awkward.
That's
Like,
Mira
I
has
was
a
like-
video of me singing.
Yeah,
all
it's
into her
you,
phone.
like she showed me the
In
video.
the same
like-
sentence, they didn't play awkward.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
sang it. You were singing it.
Sang it.
So I looked at Cameron and I was like, because like Cameron, I love Awkward. Like, oh, come on, we'll just like belt at the top of our lungs. And I was like, it's like 1 or 2 songs, and I was like, right, once they play Awkward, I'm gonna boost. Like after that, I'm going. And it was the last song they played. So as soon as that last chord was hit, I literally was like, bye, and then just left. I need to go home and go to bed.
No, I'm just
No, the
kidding.
last song was the song from the new album that none of us knew.
That was the encore
Oh,
song.
yeah,
Yeah.
they did a.
No, you left before the encore.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. That's all right.
Nice.
Well, Cam, thank
Yeah.
you so much for teaching us about what this law is the impact it's gonna have on us
Yeah.
in a couple months.
And how to
And-
protect ourselves.
If you guys are having any like HR issues or anything, deal with them yourself.
Yeah.
That's the motto of the Betterment
If we get
Project.
lots of feedback, I'll start an ABN and start consulting. But
Yeah.
for the
Nice.
moment, I don't have an ABN, so
Yeah.
don't call me.
And this is not
I am
workplace
trying.
advice.
Yeah.
This is not workplace
Actively trying to
advice.
disconnect,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I've not given financial advice. It's not workplace advice.
Yeah. And soon we'll not be giving marketing advice.
And we
when
won't
Broden
give
has his
marketing
episode.
advice when he does it. Yeah.
We have
Thank
a
you,
full like
guys.
XCOM team.
Yeah, I've been saying
is-
this. We need
we
to start a
have,
business.
yeah.
Let's sell tires or something. Yeah,
Tires.
something that makes sense. It's on brand.
Something that people always need, right?
Yeah, you're never gonna stop using tires. All right, we're gonna leave you beautiful people because we're starting to get delirious. Love you. Bye.
Love yous.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.